Everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with comics creator Yehudi Mercado. Did I say that
Hey,
correctly? First of
you
all,
did. Yeah, yeah,
fantastic, fantastic,
yeah.
wonderful. Well, Yehudi, thank you for jumping in, talking with me. And I usually start by mentioning a few works. I know that you have done Sci-Fu as well as Salvage Rocket, or is that Rocket Salvage?
Rocket salvage.
Rocket
Yeah,
Salvage, that's what I thought.
yeah,
And you've also worked in the world of DC Comics with Shazam as well. So lots of fun creating that you've done out there for sort of an all ages audience in at least most cases.
yeah.
So glad to talk through that and glad to have you on. By means of a first question, what drew you to this world of comics making? How did you know that this was the space that you wanted to be in?
I always drew as a kid. Like I always was drawing. My father is an architect, so he had like art supplies around the house all the time,
Hmm.
and we would go to art stores all the time. So it was always had a pad of paper, always had markers, always had cool pencils around. So I was always doodling, always drawing. The first comics were more comic strips. That's what I really got into, like Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, Far
Hmm.
Side, and then even like Mad Magazine, those like single page gags.
Hmm.
Um, that's what what immediately got me into you know illustrating and cartooning, and then I would yeah basically just like try to draw my own little comic strips. I was never good at like a three panel comic. Like I feel like that's such a unique art form in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That concise
But yeah.
storytelling, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so envious. Like I wind up doing these 200-page graphic novels that take, 2 years to make, but I'm envious of that three panel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an art form. It's all really interesting and challenging in its own right. I mean, you mentioned doing a 200-page book, which I imagine is just uh, a full journey for you as the
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah. I always say writing and drawing a graphic novel is like climbing a mountain.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you have to love it. It's too easy to give up. Like and there just has to be something broken inside you that makes you push forward. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah.
Um, well, in the midst of that work, as you're working on long form graphic novels like that, what's the creative process like for you?
Usually I start with, I always have a bunch of premises
Hmm.
like floating around in my brain anyway. Like Rocket Salvage was like I always wanted to do something like with race car drivers in space, sort of
Love
blue
it.
collar sci-fi kind of story. And so it was all about like, tucking that away until the opportunity came to like really flesh that out. So I always have like those kind of like log lines and nuggets floating around. And then I try to basically write it as a screenplay first,
Hmm.
just because that helps me with pacing of a story. It's to really like think of it like a movie length with three acts, and I know like when the climax happens and when the dark night of the soul happens.
Hmm.
So I write it as a screenplay first, then I start adapting the graphic novel from the screenplay.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
I work
always
all
interesting.
digital. Yeah. So I kind of like can thumbnail out a whole graphic novel pretty quickly. I do everything in a program called Adobe Flash, which is
Hmm.
now called Adobe Animate now. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Always interesting to hear how the process goes and sort of where people find their footing on that mountain of the graphic novel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's I wish, like because I do everything, write, draw, I hire flatters, but then I do all the sort of polishing, uh, coloring and stuff like that. So, but I'm also envious of like the people who have like whole teams who
mhm.
can like sort of hand off the next process to. But I don't know, not there yet.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Um, so I'm curious about what draws you to particular kinds of stories because, as I mentioned, several of the works that I've talked about have been sort of all ages kinds of works. So curious about that.
Yeah, even though like I dabble in sci-fi and sort of fantastical elements, I want all my stuff to be known as comedies first. So like I feel like, there's a certain irony or certain sense of humor that I plug in.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was really so Sci-Fu was like, I'd been writing and drawing indie comics. Sci-Fu was the first sort of big hit that I had that did really well. And then that got me noticed by the bigger publishers. And so the other series I do called Chunky. I don't know if you've had a chance
Hmm.
to check
Hmm.
that out. Yeah, like so Chunky then was like HarperCollins first real book deal, and that got like widely distributed. So it was night and day from indie comics. But yeah, it was gratifying to like have my comedic sensibilities then like be put in something a little bit more personal, a little bit more heartfelt, but
Hmm.
still like speak to the kids and like really hear like feedback from like teachers and librarians that the kids really thought it was funny. So
Yeah,
like yeah, yeah, really
nice.
satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, and then how did the DC thing happen? How did you start working with them? Because I know you have one book out and another that's on the way with a character called Batman, whoever that is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, some crazy guy in Gotham that dresses like a bat. Yeah.
that's right.
I had pitched DC. So the book coming out in May is called Barkham Asylum,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's basically the hench pets of all the villains of Gotham. So when the supervillains get sent to Arkham, where do their pets go? They go to Barkham Asylum.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I had pitched that to DC like years ago, years and years ago. Like um, actually, the editor who edited was the editor of Rocket Salvage. She went to DC, and I was like, oh, here's my chance. Like I have this idea I want to do. But I just could not get in the door. Like even though she was there, she was like on Batman proper,
Hmm.
and they were still sort of like kicking up their like all ages middle grade stuff. And it wasn't until I got a literary agent based on people interested in Chunky that then the door opened for me to like pitch Barkham Asylum. And so they loved the pitch. They were like, let's do this, but can we need to put out a Shazam book first? So can you do a Shazam graphic novel that takes place in the cinematic universe? And then so finally Barkham's coming out like this May, but it's like a 5 year journey. Yeah,
Oh wow, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah,
it's also interesting to hear about sort of the behind the scenes and how books come to be because it's I almost never hear a story that's like, yeah, I wanted it and then this happened and yeah.
yeah.
There's always a process, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Although I feel like I got spoiled with my first book deal with Archaea. Do you remember
Hmm.
Archaea? They got acquired by Boom.
I do.
They did
Hmm.
like Mouse Guard and stuff like that. But like they had seen me. So I self-published my first graphic novel. It's a comedy about pizza delivery drivers, and very R-rated, very not middle grade at all, but like comedy. It's a comedy about pizza delivery drivers. So like I would go to these conventions and set up my own tables. And since it was a book about pizza delivery drivers, I got all these pizza boxes made. So when you bought the book, like the book came in a pizza box.
Mm.
And so like I had a nice like Comic-Con setup. And
Hmm.
then that got me noticed by the indie publisher. So I feel like my first book deal like almost went too smoothly because then like kind of spoiled me for the
Right,
rest.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good to be in the industry, good to be in the field of creating, and I imagine you have a sort of a creative journey ahead. So curious about what is next.
Yeah. So, while I was writing and drawing Sci-Fu, I really doubled down on pitching like animated shows and animated films. And that's worked out. So like I have actually three movies in development at DreamWorks Feature Animation.
Nice,
And
nice.
so, and that also is a super long process, but everything's going pretty smoothly. Everything's at least moving forward, you know. And so while I'm working on more graphic novels, I have a new one that I'm working on now for HarperCollins called Viva Los Machos.
Oh, nice,
And it's sort
nice.
of, yeah, it's do you know Medieval Times? You know that restaurant, Medieval Times,
Only
like
from the
with
movie
the,
The Cable Guy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Yes.
So it's a battle theme restaurant. So in my story, it's an Aztec battle theme restaurant. So it's a family owned restaurant. They do this like battle, Aztec dinner theater. And then, of course, real monsters from Aztec mythology show up. And so it's up to the family to like save the day. So,
Nice, nice.
uh,
Very cool.
yeah. So working on that. And then I've also been lucky enough, and then this is why I'm in Japan right now, is I've been working on Cinema 4D theme park attractions for Universal Studios Japan. And so
Wow.
the first one I did is about to launch on this Friday. And it's, do you know Detective Conan? Do you know that manga? It's,
It sounds
it's,
familiar. I'm not sure that I know
yeah,
it off the
so
top of my head.
it's funny. It's like super popular. It's like in Japan, it's been running for like, I think over 30 years.
Oh,
One of the
wow.
longest running like manga anime series. And like they showed me the like the marketing brand recognition like breakdown of it, and like it's more popular here than like Harry Potter. Like it's like just
Wow.
like crazy big deal. So like we're doing a cinema 4D experience at the theme park, and there's like live actors that interact with like the animation, and then there's like smoke effects and water effects, and yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
Cool, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are a person with great versatility.
Yeah, yeah. I from a very early, time in my career, I made sure I could pivot easily.
Hmm, hmm.
I could, my first job was in video games, so creating characters and animating for video games, and I was able to like, channel those ideas into like TV pitches, and then TV pitches into graphic novels. So, like, I see everything as those, as you know as one thing. Like I don't see one of my ideas just being like one medium. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
very cool. Very cool. I know you have a website. Are there other spaces where people should go to check things out? Social media, convention, any of those kind of things that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best place. Super Mercado Comics on Instagram, and yeah, and then I have the book launch for Barkham is on May 11th in Austin, Texas, and we're doing a book launch combination with a puppy party benefiting
Nice.
Austin Pets Alive. So they're like a nonprofit that helps like make sure like Austin's a no-kill city, and I think all of Texas. They're trying to make sure. So we're gonna like do some fundraising, hopefully get some puppies adopted, and sling some books.
Awesome, awesome. All good
Yeah,
causes. I love it. I love it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very excited. Yeah, like when I first thought of the idea like of Barkham, I was like, oh, because I donate every month to Austin Pets Alive, but I was like, oh, we got to do like something big to like really like make it an event.
Very cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that even more now, to know that that's part of the creative process. Did we miss anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to mention before we close?
Uh, oh, no, I think, yeah, I think we covered most of it. Yeah. It's like
Cool,
7 in the
cool.
morning here. Sun's
Oh,
climbed up.
wow.
But yeah,
Bright and early, bright and early. My coffee is
that's
decaf,
right.
but you're on caffeine, I bet.
Oh, oh yeah. I drink, it's called ultra coffee.
Oh, nice.
Maybe that's how I can get so much stuff done. Yeah.
I was gonna say he does
Yeah.
comics, he does amusement rides, he does film. I mean, yeah, truly a one-man
Yeah.
band. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
Well, great to meet you. Glad to have you back anytime. And thank you for the work and all of the advocacy you're doing as well for the world of fur friends because they're important too.
They are very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much. This was
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah, same here. Same here. Likewise. Glad to talk again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely.